My name is Jack Josephson. I've come from the background of formulating two-pack solventless epoxies through manufacturing, designing systems, training people on how to do the systems, right through to troubleshooting in the field, as well as process management. This is in a very diverse range of applications, right from Navy ship flooring through to high-end decorative flooring like Baskin-Robbins resin floors. I've also published a lot of articles, worldwide articles, and also a specialist industrial flooring handbook that is sold worldwide by Amazon and also NACE. Well, I started Epoxy School back in 2007, and my real focus back then was just on helping people overcome, like epoxy users, overcome the preventable failures. We kept getting the same questions time and time again, and there was just this need to answer those fundamental questions. Since then, Epoxy School has become far more than that, a hell of a lot of knowledge, but its real focus was always about giving people why they were doing it, not just how to do it. If you understand the why, you can apply that to different situations, and consequently over the years, I've helped thousands of epoxy users. Probably the best example of understanding why rather than just how is to do with pinholes. So in the how type of videos, people will just show you to prime the floor or seal the floor. They're not explaining to you what's actually taking place or why it's so important to get that step right. But basically, if I teach you why it's happening, you'll understand the importance of getting that right. So pinholes typically happen because you're trying to coat a big porous concrete sponge, really. It's got lots of air pockets. And as that air inside those air pockets is heating, it's expanding and then pushing out. And in pushing out, it blows a bubble, which can in turn, a bubble in the resin floor, and in turn can cause a pinhole at the end of the day. This is blowing a bubble while the resin is still gel-like or liquid form. So conversely, if you understand that principle, then you also understand that when you're in the cooling cycle, then the air is being drawn into the bubble, and hence it sucks the resin in there and tends to fill it in rather than blow a hole and leave a pinhole. So that simple example of understanding why they occur is going to save you thousands of dollars of rework and problems on resin floors. Well, I probably have two major concerns. The first one is free YouTubes. I mean, they're prolific, they're everywhere. And the problem with them is not that it's free stuff. It's great to get free stuff, but there's some real gaps in what's being shown. And in fact, it's shown to be so easy, but it's not until you start doing it that you realize there's gaps, and at that stage it's already cost you money, materials, labor, time, heartache, all those sorts of things. So those free YouTube videos can be good for ideas, but they're really poor when it comes to improving our industry. The second major area of concern is the business that's become manufacturer product training. It's not really training on systems and so forth. It's really just a method of selling more product themselves. You kind of, and the problem I have is not the educational aspect of it, is that you walk away after a couple of days and you're under the belief that if I apply product XYZ in exactly the same manner as I was shown, then I'm trouble-free flooring. And it's simply just not like that. Every slab's different. You need to understand why, or you're going to end up with failures every time. Oh, that's an easy one. By far the most common request I get is with regard to 3D flooring. But people think that it's just a type of flooring technique that you just slap down and away you go and you make a zillion dollars. They fail to realise that you have to understand a whole lot of steps leading up to that point in time. These are all fundamental resin flooring steps, such as the site assessment, understanding the conditions of the slab, what you need to do to prepare it properly, to get it level, to get it flat enough. What systems do you need to get it to the point where it's flat enough that you can even adhere a large format print, let alone the steps required to print large format, get it down onto your slab in a nice manner, and then encapsulating. It's like, asking to just do 3D flooring is like asking to sprint in the Olympics before you've actually learned to run. So yeah, that's by far the most common question. Well, it's probably a little bit controversial that I say it, but the myth that I have the biggest issue with is the whole saying about preparation is everything. Preparation, preparation, preparation. If you get that right, then you have trouble-free floors. And it's just not the case. Preparation is one of the 5 R's. Yes, you've got to get it right, because it's probably the first thing that's going to show you a failure is if you get the prep wrong. But there's still situations, there's plenty of situations where you can get the preparation perfect, and yet still have problems. A simple example is you can prepare the floor perfectly and have no latence on the surface and a contamination-free surface, but you fail to detect hydrostatic pressure, and you've put down your coating and it's blown off and given you massive delamination. You think your prep was perfect, and now it must be product or something, but it's because you didn't understand all the conditions. So yeah, be careful with that assumption that or myth that preparation is everything. Well, you're actually standing here, or this is being filmed in our training facility, but before we do any hands-on training, it's almost critical that you understand what you're talking about. And that's what the startup course is about, is to make sure you've got that foundation knowledge across all the different systems that are being spoken about, that you understand the theory behind things, as well as having seen it, so that when you see it the second time, you're able to ask a whole different set of questions again. And I also think that the startup course is critical because it's not like watching free YouTubes and so forth. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great getting free stuff and it's great seeing that type of thing for ideas, but you kind of end up cherry picking things. You cherry pick solutions, or you're cherry picking to overcome problems, or you're trying to get certain things, but those free YouTube videos, there's just too many gaps in it. So the startup course is about filling in those gaps so that you become more knowledgeable, and you already got a head start before you actually do any hands-on work. Yeah, that's a common question too. It's interesting. I used to run day courses, and I used to only just teach 4 systems in one day. And what I learned was that, firstly, that the take-up of information in one day is very limited. The epoxy users just didn't grasp everything that was spoken on that day. It was just too much. It was information overload. Secondly, the retention of information was pretty poor. So within a few days or a week or 2 weeks, if they hadn't used that information, they'd lost it. And they had no way of regaining it. So they just didn't, they were stuck. Even if they wanted to do a system, they couldn't remember. They'd have to call back up, or I had to retrain people. So for me, the online course is there to do it in your own time, so you can, when it's convenient to you, by the way, as well. And do it in your own time. Reread, re-watch the videos, redo the assessment until you understand it. And at that point, you can keep progressing. Well, apart from being a very comprehensive course, I mean, have a look at the course outline and you'll see what's covered in there. There's a lot of information to take in. But apart from that, it's not product specific. I'm not saying that you have to use brand X and then everything's fine. This is teaching you how to work with solventless epoxies, and in fact how to even choose different solventless epoxies to understand how they behave. And then the other aspect which is important is that this startup course is in line with the framework on Resin Flooring International. And the important aspect of that is that if you choose to take on further trade training through RFI or along the same framework, you've already got the foundations in place. You're speaking the right speak. You have a hell of a lot of knowledge before you even start for the next level of training. Yes, well, the course has been running a long time, and I think that the one-word answer would be feedback. I always love getting the feedback because it tells you where there's, is there anything else that people want to learn about? I may have made assumptions about how much content and so forth, but there's been lots of things learned in the past, whatever it's been, 10 years now, that keeps getting added to this course. So the course is getting more thorough, more comprehensive. I've also learned that, I used to put the course down over an 11-month period. So just because I felt there was so much to take in and you needed time to take it in and redo it and so forth. But, epoxy users have taught me and shown me that they can do it faster than that. They can do it in a number of months, if not less. If they're really energized and they're enthusiastic, the sensation of learning is very fast. So I've made the course where you can work it at your own pace rather than a set pace. Well, the old course over 11 months cost $550. It was very much a simple learning platform with no assessments and not so much limited content, but nowadays there is so much more content. It's on a formal learning management platform, which will also be used if you choose to go on to further education, further training. And there's assessments, which is actually quite important because the assessments are there not to see whether you can recite something, it's there to test your understanding. And if you get through the assessments, then I have a level of confidence that you've understood that particular module, that particular topic. And I think that's vitally important. Now, the new package on the new platform with the bonus content and assessment is only $249. I've probably got lots of words of advice, but for me, putting it into this context, I think invest in your education is a really obvious one. I mean, the very first job you do with epoxies, you're going to spend more than $250 on materials alone. And if you get it wrong, you've blown your $250, you're going to have to buy another $250 and spend even more time and money and consumables and so forth rectifying the flaw. So for me, spending $250 to give you clarity, confidence and direction, it's a no-brainer. And that's it for me. Invest in your education, otherwise you'll be paying for it on the job.